Welcome to Brush and Beyond, where we see the world through an artist's eyes and learn to express our own worlds. Hi everyone! Welcome back to Brush and Beyond. Today, we're going to be starting a brand new series called The Geography of Art. This multi-episode series will be taking a look at why some of the world's most famous art movements started in the cities that they did. Today, we're going to be starting with the Renaissance, which started in Florence, Italy. About 600 years ago, one small city changed the entire world. Painters, sculptors, architects, scientists, philosophers, and even poets all flocked here. But first, let's understand what the Renaissance is. Renaissance is a French word for rebirth. Around 1300 to 1600 AD, there was a 300-year explosion of art, science, and ideas in Europe, or a rebirth of ideas. Suddenly, art became more beautiful, science became more accurate, and people started seeing the world in a completely new way. This change came about in three major ways. Firstly, new ideas were discovered, or rediscovered. The wisdom of ancient Greek and Roman philosophers came around again, this time in Italy. Secondly, there was new science that was discovered. Scientists like Galileo and Da Vinci observed the world around them and studied the human body and the stars. Finally, new art was created. Painters started depicting real humans with real emotions and studied the anatomy and faces of these humans. Now let's get to know this city a little bit better. In the 1400s, Florence had a population of only around 60,000 people. You might think that's a lot, but it's actually not much bigger than a small town. Yet this small city changed art forever. Florence is located right between Rome and Venice in central Italy. This places Florence right between two major cities of culture. Finally, Florence has the Arno River, which runs right through the city. These two facts about it being located between Rome and Venice and holding the Arno River is really important to remember when we consider why the Renaissance started where it did. Florence is also extremely old. Way back in 59 BC, the Roman general Julius Caesar sent his retired soldiers to build a city right here. That means it existed more than 1,300 years before the Renaissance even began. Florence waited over 1,000 years for one of its greatest moments. Another fun fact is that 1/3 of the world's art treasures are located right here in Florence. For such a small city, it's incredible that there are so many art treasures and pieces located in here. Finally, you might be wondering, where did all the money come from to buy and pay these artists? There were two major industries in Florence, wool and banking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but remember that money is what let the Florentines hire geniuses like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. Now it's time to solve the big mystery. Why exactly did this city become the world's art capital? There are 6 major reasons, and we'll be going through each of them today. The first is geography. Imagine that you're a Roman soldier. In 59 BC, Julius Caesar ordered his soldiers to build a city right by the Arno River, and this spot was perfect for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, having an open water source was really important for transport and industry, which lets culture build and grow in Florence. Additionally, Florence has hills around it that provide the city with protection. And finally, it sits right between Rome and Venice, which are two major cultural hubs. Now let's talk a little bit about the finances behind the Renaissance. Florence turned wool into a major industry. They combined English wool with Asian dyes, which created some of the most luxurious cloth in all of Europe, which was highly sought after. The Arno River was also really important for this industry. Wool became such a big deal in Florence that something called the Wool Guild was founded in 1180 AD. Another way that the Renaissance was financed was by the Medici Bank. In 1397, the Medici Bank was created, and it eventually grew to become Europe's largest bank. Even the Pope banked here. Money was extremely important for Florence to build the power to fund more art. One of the major reasons why the Renaissance was able to grow in Florence was because of the Medici family. They were considered the ultimate art sponsors of the Renaissance. First, Giovanni de' Medici founded the Medici Bank. Cosimo also funded Brunelleschi and Donatello, who are some major artists and architects that we'll talk about later. Finally, Lorenzo, or the Magnificent, let Michelangelo live with him. One of the major reasons also was competition. The Great Competition of 1401 was a great example of how competition pushed the Florentines to create more art and innovation. Florence held a public contest to design the most beautiful bronze doors in architecture. The competition came down to two architects, Brunelleschi and Ghiberti. This competition sparked so much genius innovation and so much beautiful artwork around Florence. The public guilds in Florence competed for whose art and ownership was more beautiful. On the left, we have Ghiberti's famous Golden Door, and on the right, we can see Brunelleschi's famous Great Dome. Finally, humanism was extremely important philosophically to why the Renaissance was able to grow in Florence. You might be wondering, what is humanism? Humanism just means that humans matter and we can achieve more. This idea took place when artists studied real human bodies, philosophers rediscovered old Greek and Roman wisdom, and scientists like Da Vinci used their notebooks to analyze anatomy and create new inventions. Now, let's get into some of the most incredible people who came from Florence. Leonardo da Vinci was an incredibly famous painter and a scientist, and arguably one of the most important figures that came out of the Renaissance. He painted a masterpiece known as the Mona Lisa, and designed flying machines 500 years before airplanes even existed. Another famous artist was Michelangelo. I've had the opportunity to go to Italy and see so many of his pieces across so many different museums. Some of the most standout ones are the sculpture of David in the Sistine Chapel. Sandro Botticelli was another artist who I absolutely love. He painted one of my favorite pieces called The Birth of Venus. Filippo Brunelleschi was the designer of the Great Dome, which is one of the most famous things you can visit in Florence. It was the largest brick dome ever built in history. This is a particularly important pioneer named Amerigo Vespucci. He was born in Florence in 1454 and worked for the Medici's family bank before he became an explorer. He's super famous because he sailed across the Atlantic around 1499 to 1502 to the New World, or what we now know as the Americas. Christopher Columbus thought he had reached Asia or India, but it was Vespucci who said that no, this is a totally new continent. Because he was the one who recognized it was a new land, the German mapmaker named Waldseemüller decided to name the continent after him, turning Amerigo into America. Galileo Galilei was a pioneer of anatomy and physics. He was a really famous scientist and proved that the Earth goes around the sun and pioneered modern physics. Now I'm going to show you one of the coolest churches out there, the Basilica di Santa Croce. This is located in Florence and is nicknamed the Temple of Italian Glories. Why? Because many of the greatest Florentine Renaissance artists and thinkers are buried right here. Let's look at them one by one. On the farthest left, you can see Michelangelo's tomb. Michelangelo was the master who sculpted the David and painted the Sistine Chapel. His tomb has 3 statues, each representing a different pillar of the arts: painting, sculpture, and architecture, because he was a brilliant artist at all 3. Next, we can see Galileo Galilei, who was the father of astronomy. He said that the Earth goes around the sun, but the church opposed him for almost 100 years before he was finally allowed to be buried in his holy church. However, he did end up being buried in the basilica because of his incredible findings. Now we can see Dante Alighieri, who was a famous poet who wrote the Divine Comedy. But this isn't his only monument. He's actually buried in another city called Ravenna. However, Florence missed him so much and adored his work so much that they built this memorial anyway. The famous composer Rossini also had a burial place here. And Machiavelli, who was a famous political thinker, has a tomb that you can see on the farthest right. All of these geniuses are all connected to one city, and that's not just a coincidence. It's a part of our answer. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Brush and Beyond. We have some further reading and video recommendations if you want to learn more about why the Renaissance started in Florence. There are so many incredible things to see in Florence because of how much history the Renaissance left behind. We hope you'll join us again for another Geography of Art episode. Thank you!